Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's review is at St Enodoc Golf Club in Rock in Cornwall. We will be playing the Church course, which is the championship course for St Enodoc. The Church course at St Enodoc is currently number 74 in the world of the top 100 golf courses, voted by top100golfcourses.com, and currently number 10 in England. So there really is some pedigree to this course. The Church course is a par 69, and I was playing off the yellow tees today, which was playing a little over 6,100 yards. So on to the review then. For general feeding facilities, I've given this a score of 5 out of 5. Everything about this club was absolutely perfect. An incredible clubhouse overlooking the 18th green, a great place to sort of warm up, and facilities generally. Really immaculately presented across the whole club. You really aren't disappointed, and you know you're in a special club as soon as you get up the drive. Genuinely, I do want to shout out the staff. They were so friendly and welcoming. It was really clear that the emphasis was on customer service, which is really appreciated when you do get there. For the course condition, I'm going to also give this a score of 5 out of 5. The course was in absolutely incredible condition, and considering this was played in very early January, the tee boxes were absolutely perfectly cut, fairways were well cut and wasn't full of divot marks or anything. The greens were brilliant, super consistent, maybe a little bit on the slower side, but considering it was January, pretty happy with how those greens were playing on the day. For the course difficulty, I am going to give this a score of 5 out of 5, and this was the only part of the review that I wasn't debating giving a score of 5. Don't get me wrong, this is a really tough course, and you will have to play some pretty impressive golf to even score to your handicap. I think the factor that made the difference on the day was actually the weather. It was about 7 degrees, it was bright sunshine, and there was not a breath of wind on the course. I think the conditions were actually the real difference, and obviously those that play links golf regularly, this is always going to be the factor. It did feel that the course will reward you for playing some really good shots. It'll also punish you if you are going to make some bad shots, and sometimes with some links courses that we've played and reviewed, this can get a little bit the other way, so it will punish you if you do make good shots. But on the day, all things considered, this, like I say, is a difficult course, but was probably playing at about its easiest that we could have had. For the course layout, I'm going to give this a score of 5 out of 5 as well. Everything about this club is just perfect. The layout was fantastic. You had several views that were just absolutely stunning, pretty much the whole entire way around the course. You get a really good mix of holes. I could probably name about 5 holes that could feature as sort of feature holes. Especially when you play around the Church, the views are amazing, and the front 9 does play a little bit easier than the back 9. However, you won't be disappointed at any sort of point on this course. And finally, onto the value. I'm going to give this a score of 5 out of 5 as well. And if you are ever in Cornwall and looking to play golf, this has to be the first course on your list. I ended up paying £80 for the round, and this was a winter green fee. It was meant to be 90, but there was actually a reduced fee because there was meant to be 1 green out, but actually when we got to there, it was playing as normal. The greens fees in the summer for 2025 will be around £160 to £200, and this will be somewhere between May and September. I'd more than happily pay the prices for that. It's a stunning golf course, and like I say, truly worthy of being in the top 75 courses in the world. And so, for the first time ever for any of my reviews, the Church course of St Enodoc will receive a maximum of 25 out of 25. A truly magnificent course, truly magnificent club, and well worthy of the reputation that this club has sort of internationally. So if you have made it this far, please subscribe to the channel. Please also comment and like on the video. Really appreciate all the support so far. So we'll now get into each of the 18 holes and just provide a little bit of strategy around each of the holes. Thanks guys. Hole 1, and a tough opening hole. This isn't the longest par 5, as it does play downhill from the tee box. However, you will see a mass of undulations and a very thin fairway. The ideal shot off the tee will be somewhere between 200 to 240 yards. You'll also want to favour the left hand side of the fairway, as this will give you the best shot for the second shot. Also down the right hand side, this will be really tricky to play as there is a bit of a bank to that right hand side. For the second shot, ideally you would just get yourself down the hill, which is just past the aiming post that you'll see in the middle of the fairway. The fairway does open out past this point, and you will just want to leave yourself your favourite yardage into the green. Anything down the left hand side of the fairway will be a little bit more forgiving than the right hand side. But almost irrespective of where the pin is for this hole, you will be best aiming towards the middle of the green and playing the yardage for the middle of the green as well. This green has runoff areas pretty much all the way around and quite a significant false front, especially to the right hand side of the green. The front of the green has a slightly lower tier to the back, and it also does play a little bit flatter towards the back of the green as well. There are a few undulations, so probably don't expect too much movement from most angles around this green, but if you are putting down the bank or up the bank, then pace control is going to be essential here. Hole 2, and a fairly lengthy par 4. This will play all of the yardage as it is uphill all the way to the green. Off the tee, you will be at an advantage the further down the fairway you are, but again this is a really narrow fairway with lots of undulations. Ideally you would again favour the left hand side of the fairway, as this will give you the best approach to the green. For your approach to the green, you are playing to a raised green, so I would recommend playing the yardage to at least the back of the green or adding at least half a club for the distance. The green is a narrow at the entrance, and this is quite an intimidating shot from the fairway. Missing down the left hand side of the green will give you more of a chance of getting up and down, as there is a bunker short right and thick rough beyond that. The green generally slopes from left to right as you approach the green, and almost has 3 tiers or almost like spines running from back to front of this green. You will need to commit to these putts, especially if you are putting across the green. Do expect a tiny bit of movement, and if you are having to put diagonally, then you will notice a bit more movement than if you're going down the tiers. Hole 3, and off the tee this is a blind shot, so best approach would just be to aim for the aiming post that you find in the middle of the fairway and play a club that is no more than 240 yards. What you can't see after the brow of the hill is just how much of a drop off this is. The run off to this hole will be somewhere in the region to about 270 to 280 yards if you take the line of the aiming post. The run out does become a little bit shorter the further right you are, and you do have a bit more room for error down the left hand side of this aiming post, as the hole does dogleg to the left slightly. For your approach to the green though, you're also going to want to play a little bit towards the left hand side of this green. You will be likely playing off a slightly raised fairway to the green, so you will need to factor in that by just taking off a few yards or playing the yardage to the front of the green. The further back you are on that second shot, the more that the rise will impact. I would also aim just down the left hand side of this green, as it is out of bounds all the way down the right hand side. The green itself has a slight slope from back to front. You won't have too much movement pretty much from most angles of this green though. Hole 4, and a relatively short par 4, and this is a bit of a risk reward hole. The line off the tee is the small bush that you'll see in front of you, and aiming to play somewhere in the region of 200 yards, as this will help you find the widest part of the fairway. The risk comes the further down the fairway you get, and as it is all out of bounds down the right hand side, I wouldn't like to play anything longer than about 240 yards off the tee. For your approach to the green though, you will want to aim slightly down the left hand side of this green. Anything out to the right is only going to be out of bounds. This green will be slightly above you from the fairway, so you will need to play at least the yardage to the middle of the green to factor in a slight elevation change. This will also help to avoid the bunkers that are down the left hand side of this green. The green itself generally slopes down towards the left of this green, so we're just bringing those bunkers into play. So do expect a bit of movement if you are putting across the green, especially from that right hand side. Hole 5, and a good length par 3 that plays completely over a valley. Almost irrespective of where this pin is, the main aim here is just to get to the green. Anything missing this green will leave a really tough up and down from pretty much any angle. As there are 2 bunkers down the right hand side, I would aim towards the left hand side of this green and play the yardage to the back of the green just to be safe. The miss to this green is actually back left, as there is a bit of a bank that will help this ball filter back to the green if anything. Anything longer or right will likely find the bunker down the back of the green, and the green also has a bit of a spine running down the middle of it from back to front. Once at the green though, if you are putting across that spine, then you will expect a bit of movement, but if you are on the same side as the pin, then you shouldn't expect too much movement to this green. Hole 6, and probably the signature hole here at St Enodoc. This is due to the large bunker that you'll see in the dune that separates the fairways. Off the tee though, you will need to think about the yardage that you want into the green, and I would recommend either playing somewhere around a 200 yard club off the tee. This should give you about a 30 yard gap before the bunker. This will allow you to play enough club to get over that bunker, and ideally you would play down the left hand side of this dune as it's a little bit smaller. Also less room for error down the left hand side of the green as you approach it. For your approach shot though, there is an aiming post in the middle of the dune, and this will be a pretty good guide for you to get to the middle of the green. If you are either side of sort of in the rough, you will likely need to aim sort of the same side of the aiming post. This is a completely blind shot, so you will have no idea where your ball has ended up. So I would recommend just playing the yardage to the front of the green, as this will give you the sort of biggest room for error, as the green is surrounded by banks either side. The banks are more significant towards the right and towards the back of this green, so if anything favour the left hand side. The green itself does slope generally down towards the front of the green and has a bit of a slope towards the left hand side of it as well. Hole 7, and a really good opportunity to take the time to appreciate the view of the estuary. Off the tee though, you're going to be at an advantage the further down the fairway you can get. If you want to play it safe, you should just play short of the 2 fairway bunkers down the left hand side. This will come at roughly 240 yards off the tee. This will leave you with about 160 to 170 yards to the green. There is another bunker down the right hand side of the fairway, and this will come at roughly 270 yards off the tee. This is quite a wide fairway, so an opportunity here for you to get down as far as you possibly can. For your approach to the green though, you will need to play to the middle of the green for aim and both distance. There are 2 small bunkers, one short left and one down the right hand side of this green. The green itself is shaped like an upturned down saucer and does have a few undulations as well. So do expect a little bit of movement, especially if you are having to make longer putts across this green. Hole 8, and a great looking par 3 here. And off the tee, the main aim is just to avoid the 4 bunkers that are protecting the front of the green. So for this, I would recommend just playing the yardage to at least the middle of the green, if not playing towards the back. There is a further 2 bunkers to this green at roughly halfway either side of the green. The miss to this green is actually either long or right. This is a pretty generous sized green when you do actually get up to it, so missing it would actually be quite a big miss. The green has lots of sort of lumps and bumps around it, and it will make the green a tough one to read. But the green generally slopes down towards the front of the green, so do expect plenty of movement around this green, especially if you are having to put long distance putts across the green. Hole 9, and a lengthy par 4. And off the tee, you're actually going to want to be really careful, but as there's a sort of hidden mound in the middle of the fairway, you won't really see this off the tee, so I would recommend playing no more than about 250 yards off the tee. Again, a really quite generous wide fairway, but it does narrow down the further you get down the fairway. For your approach to the green, I would recommend playing the yardage to the middle of the green and aiming for the middle of the green as well. This is a huge green, and with just the 1 bunker on the right, there's plenty of room for error around this green. But what this does, as due to the size of it, it will bring in a 3-putt if you are a little bit far away from the pin. The green generally slopes down towards the front of the green, so don't expect too much movement, but again, pace control is going to be essential for getting down the par. Hole 10, and a really challenging par 4 here, and actually stroke index 1 for the course. You're almost forced into laying up to the end of the fairway, which narrows down to about 10 yards wide. Off the tee though, you're going to want to play somewhere around the region of 220 to 230 yards. This actually isn't the difficult part, partly because you have a bit of space out right if you do miss it, but this is quite a significant hill. It is also out of bounds all the way down the left hand side as well. The difficulty here is actually the approach shot. You're likely going to have to play over 220 yards to get to the green. There is a bit of a bailout if you're short right of this green, and this will probably be the place where you'll need to aim if you can't reach over 200 yards. Again, anything on the left hand side of your approach to the green will be out of bounds as well. Most golfers will have at least 1 shot on this hole, so you really are going to have to use this to your advantage. If you feel comfortable with going for the green in 2, then I would take at least 1 more club or play the yardage to the back of the green, whilst aiming for the middle of the green. If not, play the yardage to the front, and you will need to aim to the right hand side of the green, again just to try and find that bailout spot if needed. Once you do get to the putting surface though, this has two tiers, with the right hand side of the green as you approach it being the lower of the two. There are a few undulations to this green, so do expect plenty of movement, especially if you are having to put through the tiers. Hole 11, and another good length par 3, and actually quite an intimidating shot off the tee. I would just aim towards the middle or to the right hand side of this green, and just play the yardage to the middle as well. Missing this green really isn't an option. Due to the length, it's going to make it a really difficult hole. The green has a penalty area all the way down the left hand side, which will result in a lost ball if you do end up there like I did. Also to the right hand side of this green you do have a grass wall which is really close to the edge of the green as well. And just to make matters worse, there are two small bunkers short right of this green as you approach it. The green is actually quite a generous size and is shaped a bit like an upturned down saucer. You're probably not going to expect too much movement around this green generally, but if you are having to put from the edges of the green then you might notice a bit of movement up towards the middle. Hole 12, and a good length par 4 that will play all of its yardage due to it being slightly uphill from the tee box. Off the tee I would recommend aiming at the bunker that's in the distance and aiming to play somewhere around the 220 to 240 yard mark. This will aim to cut the corner off the slight dog leg to the left. If you want to play it safer then keep it short and aim right of the bunker. Your approach to the green will play a few yards longer, so I would recommend just aiming down the right hand side of the green and play the yardage to the middle. Your miss here is actually short or right of this green, as this will avoid the bunker that's on the left hand side. The green itself has a spine running through the middle of it from front to back and generally slopes down towards the front, so do expect plenty of movement around this green, especially if you are having to put diagonally across or down the green. Hole 13, and a good risk and reward hole here. Another hole that plays entirely uphill, but this time this incline is a bit steeper. The safe play for tee though will be to find the widest part of the fairway and the rough, which comes at roughly 220 yards. Aiming for the left hand side of the left bunker that you'll see in the distance. If you want to play a little bit longer then you will need to aim straight down the fairway, but be mindful that there is out of bounds all the way down the left hand side of this hole. For your approach to the green I would aim for the centre of the green and play the yardage to the back of the green just due to that green being slightly elevated. The miss here is actually short or left of this green, but there is a bunker down the left hand side that will come into play. Missing short right will likely roll down the hill and it will end up leaving you in some thick grass and leave a very tough up and down. The green itself is pretty generous and pretty flat for most of the way around it, which will be definitely welcomed given some of the other holes that you've already played. Hole 14, and a great chance to admire the view, which is obviously the course is named after, and the estuary from the tee box here. Again, another great risk and reward hole. Off the tee though, you are going to need to work out how much of the corner you're willing to cut off. The fairway does dogleg at a 45-degree angle. Also, the fairway is raised from the tee box, so I would give yourself at least one more club to allow for that elevation change. The safe play here would be to aim for the left electricity pylon that you see in the distance and aim to place somewhere around 200 to 220 yards. If you are going to aim for the right hand pylon, then you're going to need more like 240 to 260 yards to cover the corner. The fairway also slopes down towards the right and is also out of bounds all the way down the left. So this does need to be a very accurate tee shot in terms of yardage. For your approach to the green, ideally you'll want to aim slightly down the left hand side of the green, as this will avoid missing the green right, as it is a bit of a fall off area, as you'll see a little bit later in the video. This green isn't particularly big at all and will require an accurate tee shot for both line and length. So if in doubt, just play the yardage to the back of the green and give yourself the best possible opportunity. The green, once you get there, is actually pretty flat from most angles. If anything, there is a bit of a slope down towards the front of the green, so probably don't expect too much movement from here. Hole 15, and again another opportunity to really admire the stunning views that you get around this course. So well worth just taking a minute or so just to take a look over the estuary. This is actually quite a tough par 3 due to the raised tee box. I would recommend taking at least 10 yards off the shot, or maybe just taking half a club less than what you would play normally for the yardage. If in doubt, play the yardage to the middle of the green, as missing the green short is only going to bring in more trouble to this hole. There's actually a path running across the front of this green, and there's also 3 bunkers, 2 on the left and 1 on the right of the front of this green. There's also a bunker long and also right of this green too. Missing this green will leave a really tough up and down, so if trying to find the middle of the green is really the main aim of the tee. The green has a gentle slope down towards the front of the green, but I wouldn't expect too much movement generally from most angles to this green. Hole 16 and a long par 5 playing down the coastline of the estuary. Another hole to really appreciate the views on. Off the tee though, you're simply going to need to keep this ball in play off the tee. This won't be a green that most golfers are going to reach in two, so worth just playing fairly sensibly. You will see an aim post in the distance, and this is actually positioned right at the end of the first section of the fairway. For most golfers this won't be in reach as it is nearly 260 yards off the tee. The fairway slopes down towards the right, so favouring down the left hand side of this fairway will allow for any slope. For the safest shot, I would place somewhere in the region of 220 yards, and this will help you to find the widest part of the fairway. It will also help to avoid a big dip that is sat in the middle of the fairway. For your second shot, this will be a bumpy and will leave you a really inconsistent lie. So ideally I would take aim at the bunker at the far right of the fairway and leave yourself somewhere between 60 to 100 yards to the middle of the green. The green itself has 3 bunkers, 2 on the right and 1 on the left. It's quite a long but narrow green, so this will require an accurate tee shot here. This is a 2-tier green with the back portion of the green being the higher of the 2 tiers. The front of the green slopes down towards the front. The miss here is actually either sort of front right or back left. So I would aim for the middle of the green and play the yardage to the middle of the green as well. Expect plenty of movement, especially if you are having to put down or up the tiers. This is due to the ridge cutting across the middle of the fairway in a sort of arc shape. Hole 17 and a really challenging par 3. Firstly due to its length, but also due to the fact that you cannot see all of the green. You will be able to see the flag, however you will not be able to see the bottom of it. This green is raised from the tee box and you are playing over a valley as well. The green is protected by a dune, making the entrance to the green a very narrow gap indeed. I would recommend playing the yardage to the back of the green just to make sure that you get past this entrance. You will also need to avoid the bunker that is sat short right of this green. This is actually quite a generous green once you get to it, so I would take aim slightly over the dune and just aim to get yourself as far past it as possible. Anything missed right will also be helped by the bank that is on the right hand side of the green. This green is full of undulations and this will be a really tough green, especially for those longer putts. And almost irrespective of where the pin is, do expect plenty of movement, especially like I say you're having to make those long putts across the green. And finally, hole 18, another challenging par 4 to end your round on. Off the tee, you will be at an advantage the further down the fairway you are. You will need to take aim down the left hand side of the fairway just to give yourself the best look at the green for your approach shot, plus it is also out of bounds all the way down the right. There are lots of lumps and bumps and undulations to this fairway, so for that approach shot do expect a really tricky lie. For your approach to the green though, you will be playing to a raised green, so I would recommend playing the yardage to the back of the green or just by taking one more club just to give yourself that extra bit of yardage. You will need to avoid the bunker and also the false front to this green as well. There's 2 bunkers, one short right of the green about 20 yards from the front and also one short left of the green as well. The green is shaped like an upturned down saucer but generally slopes down towards the front of the green with a couple of ridges running across the green. You won't find too much movement around this green, but again pace control is really going to be essential for minimising the amount of putts taken here.